Greetings, everybody. I've decided to do a new segment. I'm going to try something a little different. I love movies, and every once in a while you see a movie that just calls out to you, especially as a man, right? And something that just has something that's so primal, and you feel it so deep inside of you that you're just like, that was something extra special right there. That was something that just spoke to the man inside of me. And I've seen several movies like this, and I thought, it might be a good idea. Not everybody gets to see the same movies, especially in this day and age of Netflix just showing us whatever we want, or whatever streaming platform you use. So I've decided to review some movies that I think are worth seeing. And so, in that vein, I chose as my first movie the movie Ford vs. Ferrari.
Why don't we take it for a spin?
What?
Yeah, go on, Mr. Ford. Hop on in. Go on.
You want me to...
Just see what $9 million feels like.
Hey! Oh, God. Sat on my nuts.
We're going to build the next one for comfort, don't you worry. You ready?
The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready, Shelby. Hit it.
Attaboy.
Oh, it's got a little kick, doesn't it? Oh, my God! Oh, my God! Oh, my God!
It's about right now the uninitiated have a tendency to soil themselves.
Mr. Ford? You okay? Mr. Ford? You all right?
I had no idea. I had no idea.
Which, if you're into cars, it's a really interesting time when Carroll Shelby and his driver Ken Miles almost fooled Ford into letting them. Like Ford came to them to get them to do this, but Ford fought them hard. Just such a large bureaucracy, and Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles fought Ford to be allowed to make one of the best race cars of that time, and definitely the best race car that had been built up to that point in time, the Ford GT40, which won Le Mans, I believe 3 or 4 years in a row. And
you don't think that Ford Motor Company can build the greatest race car the world's ever seen? You think that we are incapable of winning an event like that, even if we had a brilliant partner? Even if we wrote a blank check.
And the first year, like literally 1, 2, 3, the top 3 cars that year were the Ford GT40. And now going to the name of this movie, back then Ferrari basically won. They won Le Mans all the time. And so they called this movie Ford versus Ferrari. It's not really what the movie's about. Ferrari is actually very small in this movie. It's someone they race against, but they're just, they used to be the winner, and here we're going to beat them. No real rivalry or anything on screen. A little bit, but nothing major. Like, you wouldn't see Ferrari as the bad guy of the movie, for example. It would have been closer to call it Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles against Ford.
You're going to build a car to beat old man Ferrari with Ford, with a Ford.
Correct.
And how long did you tell them that you needed? 200-300 years?
90 days.
You think that Ford are going to let you build the car that you want, the way you want it? The Ford Motor Company. Those guys.
versus Ford, and that would have been more true. And the actual bad guy of this movie is a Ford executive, a man named let's see here, Josh Lucas played Leo Beebe, and he was a Ford executive who was fighting for control of Ford racing and trying to make Shelby look bad so that he could take over. I don't know his story in the real world, so I'm not going to say anything about him as a person. In the movie, he is shown to be conniving and backstabbing and definitely the person they're fighting against to try to make this happen. Now, you've also got John Barenthal in there playing Lee Iacocca. I love John Barenthal. I haven't seen him in anything that I have not liked, and he's good here as well. More of a supporting role. Doesn't really do a lot, but you can tell he's an executive, Lee Iacocca, of course, who went on to other fame, just massive in the auto industry. But he was basically, you could tell in this movie he was on Shelby's side, but he couldn't do much to help him. He was an executive under this Leo Beebe guy, and he had to keep his job, but he also had to try to get this done as well, because he was also a lover of cars. Lee Iacocca was very, very much a lover of cars. And then you got Carroll Shelby, played by Matt Damon.
Well, my daddy was here today. He told me to sit on down and leave the yakking to the college boys, so like my cars, I'll make this fast.
He does so well in this role.
When I was 10 years old, Pop said to me, son, it's a truly lucky man who knows what he wants to do in this world, because that man will never work a day in his life. But there are a few, a precious few, and hell, I don't know if they're lucky or not, but there are a few people who find something they have to do.
Just amazing. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a good fit, but yeah, he does Carroll Shelby. It's like amazing. Carroll Shelby is a larger than life figure, and huge. Obviously, he made the Shelby Cobra. He was responsible for a large part of the Dodge Viper, the Shelby GT350, GT500, both in the 60s and currently. Although he's dead now, and he actually has nothing to do with the new ones. They're just using his name. But Shelby America, his company, is still involved. But just throughout history, Shelby did so many amazing things. He's almost like a car tuner that was like God status. He was the guy. If you wanted to, some tuners, they'll take a car in aftermarket and make an aftermarket version of it, like Saline or something like that with the Mustangs. But Shelby did this with the companies. Like, he built Ford GT500s and Ford GT350s with Ford. Like, you bought them off a Ford lot. And same thing with the Dodge Viper. Like I said, he did a bunch of Dodge vehicles throughout the 80s, I believe. Nothing was good in the 80s, but the Shelby stuff that he was making with Dodge was some of the best you could get, for sure. Carroll Shelby, just a massive, like, larger-than-life figure, and he acted like a larger-than-life figure. If you've ever seen video of him, he was very, out there. And Matt Damon played him very well. Excuse me. And then you have Ken Miles, played by Christian Bale. He was the driver, and he was apparently, according to the movie, responsible for quite a bit of the internal design and engineering on the GT40. He was a racer and also guided the building of the car as they were figuring it out and putting it through R&D. They called him Bulldog. Apparently he was very he didn't take any shit, and he was quick to fight.
You like losing, Ken?
Excuse me?
Oh, you heard me.
I don't lose.
Without sponsors, you get no car, Ken. And last I checked, the professionals all have a car. You cannot win the SCCA without one. If you're not winning, you are losing.
Don't make me lamp this at your head.
Did you bring your son all the way out here to watch you get disqualified, or just act like a jackass? Well, that answers that.
And they show that in this movie. Once again, I don't know about him in real life, but in this movie they show him to be that way. And I imagine his nickname was Bulldog, so probably, he probably did have that in his traits. I don't know if he had it as bad as they showed it in the movie. But in the movie, though, like when they show it, when he's fighting, like you're like, okay, that guy had a reason for that. They never show him as being the kind of person who would fight somebody for no reason or would get angry for no reason. He had reasons. He had a temper.
Do you have any idea the kind of shit that I had to eat just to get 4 wheels on that grid? No, you don't, because you don't deal with any of that stuff. Now knock it off, Ken. We got work to do, and this car ain't gonna build itself. Ah. Okay. All right.
And they worked with it as much as they could. Shelby understood it, and they worked together, and they'd fought a bunch of times, like full-on fisticuffs, but they were great friends. And Shelby had to fight to keep Ken Miles on because Ford didn't want him because he was seen as chaotic. Which, if back then, Ford being this agency that was just so bureaucratic and so huge, I could see that being a possibility. Now, Ford wanted to beat Ferrari. Ford tried to buy Ferrari, and Ferrari shut them down, and they ended up getting bought by Fiat. Ford wanted to... Lee Iacocca, apparently, according to the movie anyways, came up with the idea that to bring excitement back to the brand, they had to build race cars other than NASCAR. So they did. They decided to go to Le Mans and win, and they didn't know how to do it. They had no clue how to actually do it, so they went to Carroll Shelby. Carroll Shelby had raced in Le Mans and had won, but he had heart issues, which he had his whole life, and he led a pretty long life, but he did have heart issues, and he had to stop racing. So he started selling, of course he was selling his Shelby Cobras at the time, and building those, and also he was running his own race team with the Shelby Cobras, and with Ken Miles driving for him. And that's how everything kind of worked out. Lee Iacocca approached him about building this team and running it for Ford and designing the car and building it, and they wanted to beat Ferrari. He was given the impression he would be in control of the whole situation, but
this isn't the first time Ford Motors has gone to war in Europe. Go ahead, Carol. Go to war.
Thank you, sir.
But it wasn't very long before Leo Beebe started knocking at the door, and he wanted control, and there was a big fight all the way through. He ended up having to fire Ken Miles at one point, but then he brought him back. There was a lot of intrigue in there, and fighting back and forth, and him trying to do whatever he could to get this car built.
But our last lap, we clocked 218 miles an hour down the Mulsanne Straight. Now, in all his years of racing, old Enzo ain't never seen anything move that fast.
To make it so that he could go out and win Le Mans with this Ford. Ford fought him so hard, as a company, fought him so hard, because they wanted to do it their own way, but they didn't know what they were doing. And he had to fight so hard to get this car built. And as we all know throughout history, it happened. The GT40 was amazing. It just destroyed at the track. And it's really cool to see the story behind it and how it all happened, even if it was sensationalized for a movie. This is not a documentary by any stretch, but very, very interesting. The story behind it is great. And just seeing what these guys had to go through. I mean, Ken Miles, you'll end up loving this guy, right? He just he pulls a piece of your heart, and he's like, he's a guy. He wants things done his way. He wants them done right, and but in the end, he also just wants to race a car. And he wants to race it perfectly, and he wants to have the perfect lap, and his son's watching him the whole time. And
look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. You see it?
I think so.
And it's amazing. And they finally do get there. And they win Le Mans. And they actually end up screwing Ken Miles, but that's a story. You'll have to see it in the movie. But yeah, Ford wins 1, 2, 3. And you know, and everything's great. And they were able to keep the suits at bay and do what they needed to do to build this car to win Le Mans. And they did it. And it was amazing. You know, and looking back through history, seeing we know that this happened, right? Maybe not exactly like this, but some variation of this did happen. And it's just amazing to see what these guys had to go through, at least in this movie, in order to get the job done. And it makes you, you know, they did what they had to do, and they were strong, and they were tough, and they were proud, and you know, just larger than life. Everybody's larger than life all over the place, and they did what they had to do to get it done, and it made one of the most compelling stories in automotive history, the building of the GT40 by Carroll Shelby and Ford to beat Ferrari. And that was that's a piece of our history right there, something that these men went out, something that everybody said could not be done, especially by Ford. Ford made station wagons. They didn't go out and beat Ferrari, but these guys went out there and did it.
330.6. That's another record.
It's a perfect lap.
And they destroyed Ferrari. Just think about that for a second. They walked in and they're okay, here's this goal. Wouldn't it be great if we did it? But everybody says we can't, and we can't. We know we can't. Everybody knows we can't, but let's do it anyways. And they went out there and they said, screw it, let's hit it hard, let's just do it. And they hit it as hard as they could, and they did what they had to do to make it through. They fought the people who were supposed to be helping them, they fought the people who they were going up against, and they laser focused on it, and they got the job done, and they beat Ferrari. They made the best race car ever made up until that point. Ford, a company that made Pintos. I don't know if probably Pintos were after that, but anyways, you know what I mean. Like, it speaks to me. It speaks to me inside. It's something that, you know, I wish I could have been there to be a part of that, because that is amazing. Oh, you know, like I said, I feel that. I won't speak to the rest of the movie. I've given you the basics of it. It is 100% worth seeing. Like, if you get the chance. You know, it's not something I would have seen. It looked like some weird racing film, and I knew there was a story there, but I didn't think it was going to be anything that interesting, how they were going to actually show it. But and then I started seeing some clips, and I was like, oh, I want to check this out. And I went and I checked it out, and I was like, this is one of those movies. This is one of those movies that I feel as a man inside me. These guys did something, and they did something special, and it deserves to be remembered. And this movie deserves to be seen. If you get the chance, go out there and watch it. It's 100% worth it. It will make you feel good. Might even make you cry a couple times. But you know, it'll make you feel amazing to be a man. If that's what a man is, then it's amazing to be a man. All right, so if you get the chance, get out there and see it. Oh, okay. Just want you to know that I hope you're all out there building your best lives, building the best versions of yourself. And, you know, maybe watching this movie will help motivate you along the way. All right? I love you guys.